Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. I am joined once again by my very polite co-host, Dexter. Say Dexter, what is your favourite animated Disney movie? What? That doesn't count you... Whatever, bonehead. Well, my favourite animated Disney film, in case you can't tell, is Beauty and the Beast. It's simply a beautiful film with great animation, great characters, great music, and powerful moments. It was the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, and is widely regarded as the best film of the Disney Renaissance. In fact, this film is so strong that when Disney remade it into live action, they changed as little as possible, which was great, right? Right? But something else that this film brings is a great villain, with believable character development, going from an arrogant bully to a homicidal maniac. Except if you're this twat, in which case Gaston is the hero. It's been a while since I did a video on John Doyle, but it's the first time I'm on camera doing so, and I figured out how to give myself cleavage, which didn't end up looking so good on camera. And he wants to make a very dumb argument about one of my favourite movies. His video is called Why Beauty and the Beast is Implicitly Right-Wing, and it is idiotically awful. John Doyle starts by saying that the film attacks masculinity, order, and strength. It doesn't, but it did say that he's over-analyzing it so that the film is in accordance with my worldview. So why am I surprised?
And then about 5 minutes into the film, the purported villain of the film appears on screen, Gaston.
Yeah, the purported villain. Literally introduced standing in the shadows.
But Gaston comes on screen and he immediately takes Belle's book from her and tells her that women shouldn't be reading books because then they might get ideas in their head. That woke me. I was like, for the rest of the movie, on the edge of my seat, just in awe, watching how based Gaston is and how implicitly right-wing this whole story is.
I would agree that Gaston is right-wing. He would definitely vote for Trump. Except that he's French. Anyway, he talks about his pseudo-political ideology called Neo-Gastonism. So let's explore this so-called ideology right now. 1. Women are not allowed to read. So that's definitely sexist. I wonder if John Doyle ever again spoke to that woman he was talking about earlier in the video. I doubt it. Why can't women read? What is your superstitious justification for this bullshit? This is literally 18th century nonsense that the right of the day were yammering about because they didn't want women neglecting their domestic duties, which women are still able to tend to 400 years later. Men just have to do a bit more housework. We see Belle participating in domestic duties during the blasted movie by feeding her family's barn animals. Also, La Belle et la Bête by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve was released in the 18th century. They also didn't want women learning subversive ideas. Not like, say, revolution. The French Revolution occurred shortly after La Belle et la Bête's publication. And if you Google French Revolution key figures, most of them appeared to be men. So we were worried about women being the ones getting ideas. But men were heading this revolution. Do you think men should be unallowed to read as well? If so, at least you're consistent. If not, why not? Why the double standard? Number 2, eat lots of eggs. Which I can't really object to, they are high in protein. I mean, I guess you could object if you're vegan or vegetarian, which is fair. I'm neither vegan or vegetarian, but I freely admit that they're right. Number 3, beat the shit out of furries. I'm guessing that he's referring to the Beast. He's not a furry. He's literally cursed. Forced to be this bear, wolf, gorilla, buffalo hybrid, and also seeing himself as a monster and living in miserable isolation.
And this is most obvious with the dynamic between Belle and Gaston, but also just in the fact that the audience is made to believe that Gaston is the villain of the story. And this is because this story is basically about this like miserable proto-feminist seeking to invert virtually every aspect of her reality. And because Gaston represents the natural and ideal state of man, and because they can't change that since we all recognize instinctively that it's true, they have to instead frame it such that our perception of it is different.
Ugh. Really? You use the word natural? Like masculinity is objective? Like we have scientifically determined what a man is? Like these standards have held true across time and cultures? Because in this film's somewhat ambiguous setting, Gaston would probably be wearing high heels. I don't even have high heels. And look at me. Anyway, he contends that Belle, our main protagonist for the film, is actually the villain, due to what he perceives to be a narcissistic personality, because it's not like Gaston, who shortly after he's introduced admires his own reflection, and thinks that he deserves to marry Belle simply because he's just so great, can possibly be the tiniest bit narcissistic, right? He also refers to the Beast as the personification of Belle's chaotic feminine nature, and Gaston as the beauty of what Belle could have if she basically accepted patriarchal bullshit that John thinks is natural. John goes on to say that Belle can go in two directions, where Belle grows into the Beast, whom he describes as insecure and weak, which in fairness the film does portray him as those things. The Beast fell into despair over his curse, and locks Belle's father Maurice up, because he thinks the old man is staring at him. His second point is that the Beast will allow Belle to become a destructive beast, which the film does not support. The film shows the Beast changing himself for Belle, going from crawling around on all fours shirtless, to eventually standing upright, waltzing, dressing regally, and relearning proper table manners. He even ties some of the fur on the back of his neck into a ponytail. The movie doesn't show Belle becoming like the Beast. Belle doesn't really have any character development, which is not a criticism. Belle has a flat character arc. She remains the same, and inspires people around her to change. And this does not say that she is not well-defined or well-written. He also refers to Gaston as the beautiful man who will make Belle happy, which will probably involve raping her, and who also fulfilled his role in society. I'm not going to address that right now. I suspect that I'll be addressing that as I go over Gaston's actions, alongside John. He also says that the film's title represents this internal struggle for Belle, and not Belle and the Beast themselves. This seems a little silly to me considering that Belle is literally French for beautiful. I'm guessing that beaut, French for beauty, would have been a little too on the nose. He also refers to the ballroom scene as the film's best. Which, yeah, it's quite good, but I prefer the mob song and the final battle between the Beast and Gaston. I just love the darkness and the weight of those scenes. He then compares Belle to the biblical Eve, because women are destructive and men need to control the vagina havers. Sorry, woman. And people with vaginas that aren't women. Sorry. I just find this Eve argument to be nonsensical, because God created Adam and Eve, and he gave them the choice to take the fruit, but he knew that they were going to take the fruit, but he punishes them anyway, but everything happens according to God's divine plan, which is ultimately good, So then it's good that Eve took the apple, right? It makes no sense. What's even worse is that John says that Gaston understands this biblical interpretation. And there is absolutely nothing in the movie that implies Gaston follows Christ's teachings even casually. Gaston doesn't say, I must marry Belle to show her the ways of Christ. The only explanations that he gives for desiring Belle are that he deserves her and that Belle is as beautiful as him. Gaston is definitely not narcissistic. John thinks that Gaston was doing right by his people. The people that he manipulates and abuses.
What it seeks to do is promote the complete inversion of reality as something that makes people happy, something to be celebrated. Woman above man, chaos above order, weakness above strength, etc.
Oh, yes, the complete inversion of reality, portrayed in a fairy tale. John projects so hard. He thinks that leftists want women above men, where in reality, we just want to eliminate this sex-based hierarchy. John refers to Belle's father as weak and old, which, okay, he does look more like Belle's grandfather than her father, but he's still a man that she loves, respects, and encourages. He also spouts so much hollow bullshit that it's hard to even respond to. He says that Beauty and the Beast are both within Belle, but he has to lie about the narrative to push his bigotry, and he so obviously wants to blow Gaston. Anyway, he eventually starts exploring the film's plot, 9 minutes into a 35-minute video. Ugh. He calls the prince a proto-Kuma for rejecting the old beggar woman, and then calls him a simp for trying to apologize after she reveals her true form. I don't know that I'd call the prince a Kuma. I think it was more a plain act of vanity. And as for the prince being a simp, if I had just been an asshole to an old woman who just became a goddess in front of my eyes, and one whom I just probably seriously pissed off, yeah, I'd probably start apologizing like crazy too. Also, they don't call her a princess, they call her an enchantress. John once again calls the beast a furry. I already addressed this. He's cursed, he didn't choose this, and he hates what he is. I won't be addressing it again. After this, John jokes about the beast living in isolation as an incel, and calls him pathetic. Which I'm probably going to get a bit of hate for this. But apparently, if you do the math on the beast, he was cursed when he was 11. Which is pretty crazy, but also explains his behavior. He's basically an overgrown, hairy child that's been living this way for a decade. Sorry to bring up this plot hole, but in my defense, it's not really a plot hole. While comparing how the Beast and Gaston utilize their power, John says that the Beast is a tyrant, who abuses his subjects and... yeah, he does. And then over the course of the movie, he becomes kinder to everyone. That's his whole arc. That's his character development. Gaston is described by John as benevolent. Once again, Gaston abuses his fellow man, manipulates the villagers into doing what he wants, and conspires with corrupt doctors. And Gaston only grows worse as the movie goes on. You must also admit that even early on in the Beast's development, the film shows that he's willing to take his servants' advice, and shows some compassion to Belle. John calls Belle a bad character, because she acts in a way that he perceives to be snobbish. To the villagers that ignore her after they ask her about her hobbies, and call her strange behind her back. John also refers to a woman's children as beautiful, but ignores that she's obviously overworked and stressed. Thank God for birth control. John adds that Belle doesn't work. At all. Or towards her dreams. I don't know what kind of work a young girl can get in provincial France during the 18th century, but the film does show her working. They show her tending to the barn animals, i.e. domestic duties, i.e. duties that John Doyle definitely wants women to be limited to. Also, just because Gaston is the most admired man in the village does not oblige Belle to want to marry him, or to even oblige to marry him. John also reduces Belle's worth to her beauty. Not telling at all. John says that Gaston only values the objective, or what he can see, which is more projection. Gaston is not portrayed as a skeptic. He doesn't question the status quo because it benefits him. John then says that Belle was probably reading about proto-Marxism, which would have been pretty based, but unfortunately she's just reading romance novels. Which isn't bad, it's just that proto-Marxism would have been, in John's words, epic. Speaking of John's words, he says that Gaston doesn't want Belle reading because, as John says, women are more susceptible to the whispers of the snake. Which, once again, there is nothing in the film that insinuates Gaston is a devout Christian. John is projecting. John then discusses the scene where he says LeFou calls Belle's father crazy. Gaston defends the old man because he respects hierarchy, tradition, and that Maurice still owns Belle. Which was probably true for the time, but it's very problematic that that's what John ends with. Also, John lies about the bloody movie. Here's what actually happens.
That crazy old loon, he needs all the help he can get.
Don't talk about my father that way.
Yeah, don't talk about her father that way.
Gaston enjoys LeFou's humour at Maurice's expense, and only reprimands LeFou after Belle takes offence to make himself look good. According to John, Gaston understands that Maurice is working towards the industrialization of their town, and also the threat it poses, of which the reason provided by John is that progress is scary. Sure, we have axes, but what about the spear manufacturers? Sure, we have the printing press, but what about the spoken word? Sure, we have agriculture, but what about the hunter-gatherers? Sure, we have automobiles, but what about the horse breeders? So stupid. And just to say, if automation does put a lot of work out, I support a universal basic income. Yes, even for John Doyle. Also, Gaston just dismisses Maurice as crazy, and never ponders the societal implications of Maurice's work. John then criticizes Maurice for not going back when his horse wants to, which is dumb CinemaSins shit. At least he's acting in character. Just let the movie happen. Also, Maurice asking about how the enchanted anthropomorphic objects in the castle can be sentient is perfectly in line with his character. He's an inventor, one that seems to specialize in engineering. Why are you criticizing consistent characterization? I mean, can you believe this, idiot?
How they're married, how he's providing her with fresh food to cook, how he gives her 7 sons.
How can Gaston be so confident that he won't have even a single girl?
She runs away from this organized wedding. She didn't have to lift a finger. The greatest man in the village and probably the entire country of France at this point, Frank.
Just because Gaston organized a wedding does not oblige Belle to marry him. If it did, I'd do that for Oscar. Also, he says that Belle is standing in a film, seeking something, but standing in nothing. Yeah, nothing. Except the sky, the sun, mountains, trees, a river, the whole world, basically. Talk about missing the forest for the trees. While analysing Belle's capture by the beast, he lies about why Belle rejects Gaston. It always has to go back to him. Yeah, Belle does reject Gaston. Belle doesn't reject Gaston because she wants more. She rejects Gaston because she describes him as arrogant and conceited, which the film does support. John talks about the song like Gaston, and completely misses the boat. Gaston wrestles with the boys? No, he abuses and bites them. He's singing with the boys? Yeah, about how great he is. Why isn't Gaston narcissistic? He flips over the chessboard as a rejection of the abstract in favor of natural law? No, he flips over the chessboard, a game of strategy, as a rejection of intellectualism in favor of brute force. And Gaston does not favor original thought. He favors the status quo that benefits him, where a meathead like him can control everything. I'm just gonna let the video run from here and address everything at once. Sure, Gaston isn't portrayed as the usual cackling villain, which is what makes him a compelling villain. He progresses from a jerk to a killer, in a way that makes you believe that you could actually meet a guy like this in real life. The movie does not condemn marriage, she just says, I don't want to marry Gaston.
But now since the Beast fails the shit test and Belle's not coming to dinner, the Beast is in his room sulking like, she'll never see me as anything but a monster, it's hopeless, just going total doomer mode.
Of course he's going doomer mode. He's a beast and he only has a limited amount of time to win her over before he's stuck like this. He talks about the scene where the Beast banishes Belle, saying that she shouldn't have been nosing around in the area where the Beast forbid her to go. Well, he shouldn't have taken her prisoner. She doesn't victimize herself either, she just runs away. John then calls the Beast autistic for flinching, while Belle cleans his wounds. According to math, the Beast was transformed when he was a child. He literally never grew up. Stop using the word autistic as a way to insult the Beast. Maybe he's not doing it on purpose, but I doubt it. He's not LARPing as an animal either. He's a literal beast.
And that should tell you all you need to know right there. Like, literally, the Chad don't read books versus the Virgin, here, take all of them.
What does John have against reading? John also says that Belle is trying to normalize bestiality, which is a difficult thing to talk about, because we'd be getting into a lot of esoteric stuff that doesn't really have a real-world comparison. To call the relationship between Belle and the Beast bestiality would be dishonest. The Beast is a cursed man, and yes, though Belle isn't aware of this, I mean, she does find at least one clue. The Beast is still intelligent and sapient. He is not an animal. I mean, let's look at Dragon Ball and the relationship between Son Goku and Chi-Chi. Is this bestiality? Goku isn't technically human either, he's an alien. John Doyle is definitely sexist, because it's here where he says that it's in a woman's nature to be chaotic and ruin everything. He then says that the Beast would allow Belle to become a destructive beast like him. The Beast changes himself for Belle. The Beast rediscovers his humanity and regains compassion.
The true nature of the Beast is revealed. He is a selfish aristocrat. His entire help, his best and only friends are counting on him to break this curse, and he throws it away for his own self-image of being like this compassionate, understanding guy or whatever. He's at the top. He's in control. He has an obligation to his people, and he throws it away.
I'm sorry, but Belle can't be forced to fall in love with the Beast, even to save everyone else in the castle. That would be coercion. And she doesn't leave because she's not satisfied there. She leaves because her father is lost in the cold woods looking for her and growing sick. John then lies that Maurice's father is getting locked up because he's undermining the town's economy. He's being locked up because Gaston made a deal with a corrupt doctor to force Belle to marry him. Otherwise, Maurice will be taken to a lunatic asylum. John can't even keep Gaston's characterization consistent. He'll say that Gaston wants everyone to benefit, but he'll allow Belle's father to continue inventing, which will ultimately harm the town, according to John. Keep in mind that Gaston is basically a meathead, and nothing implies that he's capable of that kind of thought. But the contradiction is that he says Gaston would be fine with the industrialization because it'd benefit his children. How noble. Screw the rest of the village, my children will be rich. According to John, it's after Gaston learns of the Beast's existence that Gaston realizes that it isn't about Belle anymore, despite still saying that it's still about Belle. I don't even need to use the movie to contradict John when John is contradicting John. But during Gaston's fight with the beast, he says, "Belle is mine!" So yeah, it was about Belle the whole time. If Gaston's dialogue had remained "time to die" as originally planned, you might have had a leg to stand on.
Gaston begins basically like rhetorically psyoping the townsfolk to garner support for his cause, basically just like inventing these bad outcomes that could potentially happen to scare people.
To me, that sounds like terrorism. John says that Gaston has honor. Gaston spends the whole movie lying, abusing, bullying, and extorting. And how can you say that the beast was about to kill Gaston out of insecurity? It would have been self-defense. Gaston was trying to kill him, and then Gaston used underhanded tactics, like stabbing the beast in the back after begging for mercy. John then lies that the beast never bested Gaston. Look at that image! He did! John also calls the beast's human form less handsome than Gaston, which... yeah, I have to agree. And I assume that the people attending the wedding are the objects within the castle having been returned to human form. John also says something weird. Would Gaston and Belle's children have recognized the state of Israel? I don't know what that means. Israel's foreign policy is pretty awful, but John's words are ambiguous enough to make me wonder if he's dog-whistling anti-Semitism. This video was awful! Now, art is subjective. Not any single interpretation is automatically incorrect. But you have to find things from the movie to support it! You can't fill in the blanks with your Christian conservative faith. John Doyle lies about almost everything. He lies about the characters and he lies about the plot. The whole video was just a vehicle to promote his sexism.